Hey there, it's Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. Before we get into the next episode, I wanted to ask that you subscribe to the show. It'll help us get even more unique and interesting guests on the podcast and in turn continue to educate management teams and the growing ecosystem that creates value for fast-growing private and public companies. And while you're at it, head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated.
I've been in the technology industry for a long time now. We do tend to compete amongst each other. Silicon Valley companies, we wake up every day thinking, how can we gain market share? How can we, delight our customers more than our peers?
Competitive industries and surging demand make it easy to focus on short-term wins. But with so much at stake, real success requires a broader vision. How do we build strategies that not only deliver results today, but also lay strong foundations for tomorrow?
But I think I've seen a real evolution in this. I have seen more collaboration amongst, my fellow CEOs in the last 12 months. When it comes to AI, I think we've got to collectively work as an industry to try to get this right. Because if we get this right, we can change the future of humankind.
Being a public company can be hard. Small missteps can have outsized consequences. I'm Tom Ryan, founder and CEO of ICR. And over the last 25 years, we've helped thousands of companies understand and navigate the stock market and the media. We'll demystify these and other increasingly complex stakeholder groups so you can focus on what you do best, building your company and unlocking your true potential. This is Welcome to the Arena from ICR. The rapid rise of AI is transforming industries at an unprecedented pace, creating massive opportunities for innovation, but also some new challenges. With a technology this powerful, pure progress is not enough. We have a responsibility to be intentional about how we build it, power it, and use it to ensure it drives positive outcomes and a more sustainable future. With demand for high-performance, energy-efficient solutions on the rise, today's guest is leading the way at the intersection of innovation, infrastructure, and energy, tackling the challenges of an increasingly complex digital world. Today, we're sitting down with Rahul Mewawalla, the CEO and president of Mawson Infrastructure Group, which trades on NASDAQ under the symbol MIGI. They are a rapidly evolving digital infrastructure services company. Rahul has been CEO for over a decade and has been a leader at numerous technology companies, including household names like Yahoo, Nokia, and General Electric. He has sat on the boards of 6 NASDAQ-listed companies, including as chairman of the board for 2, and led San Francisco's innovation and technology program in collaboration with the White House and the Executive Office of the President. Rahul also served as a special government employee with the United States Department of Defense and as an advisor to Stanford University's Persuasive Technology Lab. He's had a front row seat to 4 major technology waves: the internet, mobile, cloud, and AI, giving him tremendous perspective on today's rapidly evolving landscape. Let's enter the arena with Rahul Mewawalla. So you've had like an amazing career, kind of spanning all kinds of major tech companies, Yahoo, Nokia, GE, which is really industrial tech, before joining Mawson. What drew you to that space, to the digital infrastructure space?
Well, it's been a real adventure. And as you sort of mentioned, I've been fortunate to have a front row seat to really 4 major technology waves. The first one was the internet. And you remember back in the day when the internet first emerged, there was initially a lot of excitement, and then things petered down. We went through the dot-com bust, and people then sort of felt like maybe the internet wasn't to stay. And, clearly for those of us that played the long game, the internet revolutionized how we work, how we live, how we operate. I currently live in Seattle, as you know, and not far from me is Jeff Bezos. And he obviously went through, a real adventure when he first started Amazon. And there were, a lot of people that were skeptical. And that company obviously has done very, very well. And so, as you sort of think about the internet, and then you think about mobile that I was involved with thereafter, and then cloud computing, and now artificial intelligence. In many ways, even though the movie is somewhat different, there are a lot of lessons that you learn from going through those waves, and many of them are similar.
Yep.
And so, as I sort of think about where we are today and looking ahead, whether you're thinking about artificial intelligence or you're thinking about autonomous vehicles, you're thinking about space travel, whatever it might be. Fundamentally, all of that is based on having compute capacity, right? Every time we use ChatGPT or, whatever your favorite AI model might be, in the back end, you've got these huge clusters of computing capacity that is running the processing needed to provide us the answers we're looking for. And we're at a time where our aspirations are so much larger than available compute capacity. And I think anything that we can do to solve that underlying need for compute capacity, I think, is fundamental. And that's what drew me to Mawson. We are a digital infrastructure company and we provide compute capacity. And I think the world can't get enough of it.
Yeah, well, there's no question about it. And you've kind of led a remarkable transformation at Mawson over the past year, kind of repositioning or evolving from kind of the Bitcoin mining roots to something broader than that. Walk us through that transformation, how you kind of did it, the key milestones of the journey, et cetera, because it's like very exciting what you're doing.
It's been a real journey. What we've been doing really is, we have 3 jobs that we concurrently do: building the company for the future and looking around the corner and thinking about where the world's going to be in 18, 24, 36 months, and are building the company to be best positioned for where we see technology and our customers and our partners and what their needs are going to be concurrently. As a publicly traded company, as you sort of pointed out, when we're listed on the NASDAQ, being the CEO of a publicly traded company is increasingly challenging. There are changing regulations, growing sort of demands. And so that's sort of a full-time job in itself, just running a publicly traded company on a day-to-day basis. And then the third is, the journey of transformation that we're on. And in many ways, we're trying to make sure the trains are running on time while we're building a rocket ship. And, if you look at what we've accomplished through that journey of transformation that we're still very much on, it really has been, remarkable. We earlier today talked about 136% year-on-year growth in revenue in our digital co-location business. We talked about overall revenue growth of 36% on a year-on-year basis. And we've done all of this while being more efficient, more productive, much more disciplined. And, done this while we've built much more advanced, strategic, financial, and operational capabilities. And so I think it's been really exciting. I think, while the financials sort of speak for themselves in terms of the progress we've made, I think one of the key things when you are going through a transformation is transforming the culture of the company, as you know, Tom.
Yep.
And I think we've built this culture in the last few years around being very collaborative in nature. And I think, you would ask me what was one of the hardest things about the transformation. I think it was changing the culture, but it's also one of the things that I'm proudest of because ultimately, some of our decisions will evolve, directional changes will keep enhancing, but getting the culture right is fundamentally important. And I think, we've really done a good job around that.
Yeah, and I think it can be so underestimated sometimes, and it's so difficult to do. So congratulations on that. Switching gears, I think there's been a lot of discussion about infrastructure constraints, kind of limiting AI's deployment. Can you kind of break down the key components of the AI technology stack and then maybe how you fit into that at Mawson?
So let's sort of think about it from a consumer standpoint, as most people think about it. When you are on your desktop or your mobile, and let's say you pull up, ChatGPT or Meta's AI engine or, Anthropic or, DeepSeek now, whatever sort of, LLM engine you prefer to use, when you pull that up and you put in a question in there, that question flows through a layer of software and applications that, most consumers don't see, and then flows further through to a hardware cluster, GPUs, which are typically, NVIDIA, the Blackwell generation of GPUs, and then the Rubin family moving forward. And that cluster of computers or GPUs is in turn hosted in data centers and digital infrastructure providers. And that's the backbone of how we think about artificial intelligence. And that's the space that we operate in. We provide infrastructure for companies to essentially have their compute in, and then we run, manage, and operate that compute for them, whether that's for artificial intelligence or high-performance computing or digital assets or whatever your compute needs might be. And that's essentially the flow of the AI value chain. And as we've seen, whether it's the internet or mobile or cloud computer, now AI, having the backbone of the technology is the key foundation for all of this being successful. And as you think about ChatGPT was only introduced a little over 2 years ago.
I know, amazing.
It's not been that long. It was the fastest growing consumer application in history in terms of hitting 100 million users. And I fully anticipate as we think about all of the different AI models, whether it's Meta, Google, or Copilot from Microsoft or ChatGPT, we're going to be easily exceeding 1 billion active users for AI engines relatively shortly. And that number will only extrapolate over time. And so to do all of that, you need the computational capacity to grow in tandem. And that's where we play a role. And I think, there was an announcement a few months ago around a $100 billion AI infrastructure fund that was led by, Microsoft and BlackRock and global infrastructure partners. And then just recently, the announcement around Stargate, right, which is the $500 billion project around building capacity for AI. But even though these seem like staggering numbers, my view is this is just the beginning. You're going to see an increased amount of investment around this. You're going to see an increased amount of excitement around it. And we're just in the first innings of the game.
Yeah. And having been through those 4 waves, the internet and mobile and all the way up to AI here, what's your perspective on the amount of capital flowing into this? How do you judge it?
I think when people think about AI today, I don't think enough people are looking back at some of the previous waves and thinking about what some of the lessons that we learned are, because I think many of them are applicable to this new wave as well. When you first embark on a new technological wave that's transformative, like the ones we just spoke about, the initial investment seems extraordinarily high. And it just seems like staggering numbers. It seems like there's a real scarcity. But it is important for, CEOs and boards and the broad ecosystem to be willing to make those investments, knowing a couple of things. So for those that are expecting an ROI right off the bat, I think that's going to be myopic. I think you've got to know you are playing the long game. But I think you've also got to realize that with every wave around transformative technology, we do tend to get more efficient over time. That economic scale will kick in when we talk about AI as well. And there are already a couple of examples where we're seeing this. If you look at the GPUs and you look at what NVIDIA's done in the last 4 or 5 years, the efficiency of the GPU has improved 1,000x.
Yeah.
And if I look at some of the innovations that they're building towards in the next, 18 to 24 months, that number will only improve. And then how we use these GPUs in terms of the software we create to try to draw as much we can from these GPUs is only going to improve. I mean, one of the exciting things about DeepSeek, while we're still debating around some of the actual numbers, what it does demonstrate is, you can become much more efficient in how you build these LLMs. And so I think we are going to be putting in, as an industry, a lot of investment in this. I think we've got to play the long game, and we've also got to realize that we will become more productive and efficient and innovative in how we build these and utilize these moving forward. But this truly is going to be transformative. I mean, I think about how the internet changed the world, and I think about how mobile changed the world, and then cloud compute. And I think when we look back, AI is going to be transformative than all of them combined.
Yeah. Wow. That's like an amazing statement coming from you with your background. Switching to power markets, Rahul, you operate in the PJM market. What is that? Why did you choose that region?
Yeah, so the PJM market, it is the largest wholesale power market in North America. And it also happens to be deregulated. It's a very robust, deep energy market. It also has a lot of exposure to nuclear, which we like. And as we historically have operated in many parts of the country, running these sort of data centers and infrastructure sites across various states. And over time, as we looked at our data, we came to the realization that in terms of what we're looking for, which is a deep, robust energy market, we're looking for the market to be wholesale and deregulated. We're looking for the market to have not only access to abundant power, but access to high-speed fiber with low latency. And we're looking to be close to, tech hubs, such as Pittsburgh and sort of other markets. The PJM market was just a really good fit for us. While we were early entrants into the PJM market, relatively speaking, we've seen now other companies like Amazon and Microsoft who've recently announced large investments in the PJM market. So we expect that more people will recognize the value of being in that market, we welcome that.
As Rahul touched on, power plays a critical role in supporting the computing capacity needed to drive AI adoption and progress. With energy demand surging and climate concerns top of mind, nuclear energy is emerging as a stable, scalable, and increasingly innovative solution. For Mawson, it's one of the key clean energy sources they're embracing as they execute on a carbon zero approach.
We were talking about compute capacity earlier as a real need to drive the innovation that we're looking to drive. The other element of that obviously is power. Once you have this compute capacity, you need an enormous amount of power to run the compute. And as a country, we haven't invested as much historically as perhaps we should have around building out our power infrastructure. And so now we're trying to be as innovative as we can to think about power moving forward. And nuclear clearly is a key element of that. While I know that there's an ongoing debate around nuclear, some of the things that are good about nuclear is that it's very stable. You can run it 24/7. From a footprint basis, you can have a relatively small footprint and generate, an enormous amount of power. And just from a technology perspective, I think we've got much more innovative as we think about nuclear. There's been a lot of work around nuclear engineering in the last 3 or 4 years. As you know, Tom, there are companies that are actively working on what are called sort of small, nuclear reactors that are sort of the next generation of nuclear energy generation. And, we know the space really well. One of the sites that we run is in Midland, Pennsylvania, right by the Ohio River, and right across from our site on the other side of the river is the Beaver Valley nuclear plant. And so, we're very invested in nuclear. We think that there's going to be a lot more innovation moving forward, and we think it's got to be, part of the solution as we think about a variety of different energy sources moving forward. But generally speaking, as you rightly pointed out, it's been a strategic imperative for us around carbon zero energy. All of our energy that we utilize at all of our sites today is effectively carbon zero. And we think that's worked really well. We think our customers and our partners appreciate that and value that. And so it's been a real priority for us.
Well, there's no shortage of things to do as you build and expand the business, and that obviously takes really talented people, Rahul. Talk about the management team that you have. I know they've come with different technology expertise from companies like Apple and T-Mobile and Yahoo and others. Talk about the management team and why your group really kind of has an edge in what you're doing and how they're really going to kind of execute for all the stakeholders over the next decade.
When you think about running a public company and you ultimately boil that down, what it really is making a series of decisions, right? We make decisions every day, some small, some big, some about the company decisions. The goal is to get as many of them right. And for those that you sort of feel aren't going right, the goal is to correct and readjust, based on new data that you get coming in. But fundamentally, it's all about decision making. And if you look at successful companies and successful CEOs, they're trying to build a team around them that helps facilitate great decision making. And I think that's very much what we're doing here as well. We've built out a new management team, about 40% of the overall organization. We brought in the last, year or two. 60% of the management team we brought in, after I came in as CEO. And while the management team has a variety of backgrounds, what's common to all of them is they come from deep technology. So whether it's Apple or Amazon Web Services or T-Mobile, but they've also, all of them have been through, whether it's a journey of transformation or they've been through, headwinds and tailwinds, because it's important, you want to have people with you who've been through some sort of a battle. Because, there always are good times and tough times when you're running any public company. And so I think building a deep bench around people who've been through, transformation mode, growth mode, crisis mode, and fundamentally realize the importance of data-driven decision-making, and yet, are humble and collaborative and are happy to roll up their sleeves and jump into the trenches. I think that's worked really well for us.
And more about Mawson, I know that you recently announced the first major AI co-location agreement, a 6-year deal. Describe the deal itself, the potential expansion that comes with it, and what does it kind of tell you about the market demand right now?
There's a real surge, Tom, around market demand right now. And, I think there's a real race amongst technology companies today to try to have a competitive front runner position around AI. If you think about your being a player in the technology ecosystem today, I think most CEOs, and this is true for some of the largest technology companies as well. I know that Satya believes this. I know that, Sundar believes this. Zuck believes this. Elon and Sam obviously have talked about this as well. Having competitiveness around AI is core to their company moving forward. And while obviously we've all invested in building software, if you don't have the underlying hardware that the software can run on, then you're at a disadvantage compared to your peers. And so there's a real arms race today around building what we call sort of AI factories. And we only expect that to continue moving forward. I think all of us are sort of taking a slightly different approach in terms of how we're going about it, but the goal is the same, to try to build as much compute capacity as we can and be innovative in how we build it in terms of being, efficient and productive and forward-looking. We certainly can be a beneficiary of that. And I think the fact that we have a team that comes from technology, that sort of understands the fundamentals of how AI works and are willing to partner and collaborate with a number of these companies in terms of our working together has been very helpful, and I know they appreciate that. So I think it's just the beginning. I'm excited about, what the future holds and our role in it. And I think it'll be really exciting.
So you feel it's complementary in a way, that kind of that relationship between the hyperscalers and independent digital infrastructure providers like yourself. You talked about benefiting from that. Most people see the big companies coming in and they get scared, but the reality is you can coexist and really kind of benefit from building that ecosystem together, right?
Very much so. And, I think I've seen a real evolution in this over the last several years. It is true that we do tend to compete amongst each other. Was it Yahoo or Nokia or GE or, a number of other Silicon Valley companies? We wake up every day thinking, how can we gain market share? How can we, delight our customers more than our peers? How can we continue to sort of gain momentum and build revenue? And so the technology companies have always been very competitive. But I think when it comes to AI, I think all of us recognize that this is a problem that needs resources more than any one or a group of companies can bring to bear. And that we've got to collectively work as an industry to try to get this right. Because if we get this right, we can change the future of humankind. And it's not just the private sector. We're actively working with the public sector and the administration around what we need for AI to be successful moving forward and for, the US to have a real leadership position around that. And so I have seen more collaboration amongst, my fellow CEOs in the last 12 months than I think I've seen historically. But I think that's just a recognition of we all think of this as really important and we want to get it right.
Well, look, Mawson has expertise across a lot of different areas: AI, HPC, infrastructure, digital assets, energy management, et cetera. How do you think, by taking kind of a broader approach to your total addressable market and the different things that you're doing, how do those business lines create like synergies and maybe a competitive advantage for the business?
It's a really good question. And I think it speaks to two things. I think one, you've got to really, as a company, step back and say, what is your fundamental proposition? And I think our fundamental proposition is we're a digital infrastructure company that provides compute. And as I say that, what that means then is that we want to provide our compute for a variety of purposes, whether it's artificial intelligence or high performance compute or digital assets or other sort of emerging compute applications. But as long as we are amongst the best operators of compute in terms of how we run, manage, and optimize compute, that is our fundamental proposition. Now, our then opening that up to a variety of markets provides us the additional advantage of being agile. Depending on macro trends or sort of what's happening in the industry, from a commercial perspective, sometimes it is more advantageous to, serve one market or the other. And our having the agility to be able to recognize that and look around the corner and make smart bets around that, I think serves our shareholders well. And so I think that combination has worked well for us. I think really differentiates us from some of our peers and has allowed us to post some really remarkable financial results that we're very excited about.
Yeah. And how do you balance kind of going down the rabbit hole on technology and the changes and the adoption of all that with kind of operational excellence, shareholder returns. How do you kind of balance all that?
Yeah, I'm a technologist at heart, yet I am a business leader. And I think from my standpoint, you've got to be very data-driven in terms of how you make decisions and think about where the company is moving forward. In many ways, if I had to boil it all down, it's a three-step process. I think first, you've got to be able to look around the corner. You've got to think about where the world is going, how the industry is going to evolve, how the market's going to adapt to that. And you've got to build a company where the future is going to be, not just the present. So I think that's sort of the first stage. I think then the second stage is once you have a point of view around where the world is going and where you want to be moving forward, what is the best way to get that? And you've got to do more with less. You've got to be very efficient and optimize. And so, mapping out that journey, if you will, from where you are today to where you want to be moving forward and what's the best part to get there, I think then is the second step. And you've got to try to make sure you get that right. And then the third step, once you know where you're going and you've mapped out a path to get there, is rallying the entire organization to come along with you for the ride. And, building that sort of shared vision, that shared sense of purpose, amongst your employees and your partners and your customers and your shareholders and, the broader ecosystem. And then you swim as fast as you can.
Yeah. It sounds so easy when you describe it. But you got to actually do it. That's the hard part, but you're doing it. Hey, tell me, like, when you look at 3 to 5 years, which is an eternity, in technology, and it's an eternity in running a publicly traded company, what are the biggest opportunities for the company? What are the top, 3 or 4 things that get you really excited, that get you out of bed every morning?
I think one is just, the business that we're in. I think that it is amongst the most exciting businesses to be in today, providing compute capacity for the next wave of advancement for how we work and live and operate, I think is exciting. And we can be part of the larger solution. I think secondly, the team that I work with, smart yet humble, but very driven group of people. And I just enjoy working with them. And sometimes we're working on great news and sometimes we're working, through difficult news, but whatever it might be, it's a really good team to work with. My philosophy is I try to run a very flat organization. So I talk to people on the front lines all of the time. Some of the best ideas actually come from different parts of the organization. And I really enjoy that. I love talking to our customers, our partners, our shareholders, getting their inputs in, hearing what their thoughts are. I think that's a really enjoyable part of my job. And the third is, I think we go into this every day saying, let's get a little better every single day. I keep telling my team, if we improve 2 to 3% every day, and then you multiply that by 365 days, that's a lot of improvement. And so regardless of all of the results that we've posted and, the tremendous growth in our revenue and some of the new exciting announcements we've made, I think we can continue to progress and advance. And we want to raise the bar every single time, every single day.
Mawson is at the forefront of AI's massive infrastructure shift, optimizing for high-performance computing while addressing the environmental concerns the industry faces by prioritizing alternative energy sources. Under his leadership, the company is demonstrating that true innovation thrives on cross-industry collaboration by strategically leveraging the PJM market, nuclear energy, and carbon-neutral solutions. Mawson is building infrastructure and fostering partnerships that ensure technology and responsibility grow together. At Welcome to the Arena from ICR, we're working really hard to bring you exciting guests and great content. If you found this episode insightful, please subscribe to the show on your podcast app and leave us a 5-star rating. The more the show grows, the more interesting voices we can have on the podcast, and in turn, that should demystify a lot of the stakeholders around public companies and soon-to-be public companies. Thank you so much for listening. I'd like to thank Rahul for joining me on the show today. Mawson is not only collaborating with industry leaders, but also with governments and public sectors to develop smarter, stronger solutions that can shape a stronger future for the whole world. This is Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time back in the arena.
References to specific stocks are not intended to be recommendations for specific trading behavior. Comments presented on this podcast are intended for informational and educational purposes only, and do not represent opinions or recommendations on whether to buy, sell, or hold shares of a particular stock. All investors are advised to conduct their own independent research into individual stocks before making a trading decision. In addition, investors are advised that past stock performance is no guarantee of future price performance.